Assalamu alaikum, dear students. In this lecture, the spinal cord develops from the caudal tubular part of the neural tube. The gray matter in the alar plate of the developing spinal cord forms the dorsal gray column that extends the throughout length of the spinal cord. And in transverse section of the spinal cord, the dorsal column appear as the dorsal horns of the spinal cord. The gray matter in the basal plate of the developing spinal cord forms the ventral gray column of the spinal cord, and in transverse section this ventral gray column appears as the ventral horn of the spinal cord. These two columns extend the whole length of the spinal cord, while the cells of the ventral horn, in addition to forming the ventral horn, they form an additional column with the name of the lateral gray column or the intermediate horn, and that intermediate or the lateral horn gray column is formed in the thoracic and the upper lumbar regions of the spinal cord. Similar intermediate column is also formed in the second, third, and the fourth sacral regions of the spinal cord. The dorsal gray column of the spinal cord contains the neurons which are sensory in function. They receive the afferent fibers through the posterior roots of the spinal nerves, while the ventral gray column contains the neurons which are motor in function, and their axons leave the spinal cord as the ventral rootlets of the spinal nerve. These two rootlets, the ventral rootlets and the dorsal rootlets, when they get united, they form the trunk of the spinal nerves. The intermediate or the lateral gray column contains some motor neurons of the autonomic nervous system. In the thoracic and the upper part of the lumbar region, these motor neurons are the part of the sympathetic part of the nervous system. Their axons leave along with the ventral rootlets of the spinal nerves, but they leave the spinal nerves as the white rami communicants to reach the ganglion of the sympathetic trunk. The neurons of the lateral gray column of the sacral region, that is the sacral third and the sacral fourth segment of the spinal cord, they also leave along with the ventral rootlets of the spinal nerve as the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers, and these fibers terminate in the peripheral parasympathetic ganglions which are present in the lower abdominal region and the pelvic region, or they terminate in the ganglions which are present very near to the wall of the viscera or present within the wall of the viscera. Now we come to the histology of the spinal cord. Initially, as you know, the neural tube consists of a single lining, single layer of the ectodermal type of the cells, which are called the neuroectodermal cells, and later on they grow in number and give rise to the pseudostratified columnar type of the epithelium and form a neuroepithelial type of the cells, and giving rise to a layer with the name of the neuroepithelial layer, or as it also act as a germinal layer, so we also label it as a germinal layer or the neuroepithelial layers. Then the cells of the neuroepithelial cell layer give rise to another type of the cells which are called the neuroblast type of the cells. These neuroepiblast cells move outward and form a layer external to the neuroepithelial layer, and that layer is called the mental layer. Initially, these neuroblast cells contains a single processes which are directed towards the lumen of the neural tube. But when they reach in the mental layer of the neural tube, they lose that single process and becomes apolar type of the neuroblast. This is the apolar neuroblast. They become rotted here and lose that single process. But with further development, they develop two processes opposite to each other and becomes the bipolar neuroblasts. These are the bipolar neuroblasts. One of the processes gets long and form the primitive axon, and those primitive axons move outward from the mental layer and form a layer external to the mental layer, which is called the marginal zone or the marginal layer. That is the marginal layer. While the other process shows cytoplasmic arborizations and form multiple processes with the name of the primitive dendrites. So, from apolar neuroblast, the bipolar neuroblast is formed, and then from the bipolar neuroblast, the multipolar neuroblasts are formed. Then they, with further development, they mature themselves and form the neurons. Another type of the cells which develops from the neuroepithelial type of the cell is called the glial cells. Two of the glial cells, one is the astrocytes, which are of two types, you know, the fibrillary type and the protoplasmic type of the astrocytes, and another type is the oligodendrotype cells. These two cells are also developed from the neuroepithelial cells. They also move outwards. They initially reach in the mental layer of the neural tube. Most of the astrocytes stay here. They provide a support and the protective function, while the most of the oligodendrocytes move outwards and they reach in the marginal layer of the neural tube. And here they perform the function of the myelination, so giving the whitish color to the axons arising from the neurons present in the mental layer of the neural tube. While the third type of the glial cell, which have a phagocytic function, they do not arise from the neuroepithelial cells. They are derived from the vascular mesenchyme and they reach here in the neural tube when these blood vessels start to form in the neural tube. The gray matter in the basal plates of the neural tube, they grow more and more in a ventral direction, and with the result they form a groove in between, which is called the anterior median fissure, while the cells of the dorsal horn of the spinal cord, they grow more in a medial direction, so moving towards each other, these two horns are from the right side and the left side, and in a septum is formed, which is called the posterior median septum. A typical spinal nerve consists of ventral motor root and a dorsal sensory root. So it is formed by the joining of these two roots containing both the motor fibers as well as the sensory fibers. The ventral motor root is formed by the axons of the cell which form the ventral horn of the spinal cord. Ventral horn in turn develops from the basal plate of the developing spinal cord, while the dorsal root is formed by the sensory cells present in the dorsal root ganglions, which are located outside the spinal cord on either side of the spinal cord. These dorsal root ganglions develops from the specialized type of the cells which are called the neural crest cells. These neural crest cells are present along the edges of the neural plate where they are continuous with the rest of the ectoderm. So they are ectodermal in origin. When the neural tube get closes, these type special population of the cells also get dissociate from there and come to lie on either side of the neural tube. The neural brass present in these dorsal root ganglions give rise to the two types of the processes. When the centrally growing processes, the other peripheral growing processes. The centrally growing processes enters into the dorsal horn of the spinal cord, where they synapse in the cells of the dorsal horn, or they ascend in the marginal layer to the higher centers in the brain, forming the dorsal rootlets of the spinal nerve, while the peripherally directed fibers join with the ventral motor rootlets of the spinal nerves to form the trunk of the spinal nerve. The ventral motor roots, in addition to the axons from the ventral horn of the cells, they also contains axons from the lateral gray column in the thoracic region and in the upper part of the lumbar regions, and also from the second, third and the fourth segment of the spinal cord, as the lateral horn is present in these two situations. So the ventral motor roots also contains the motor fibers which are concerned with the autonomic nervous system from these two regions, mainly the thoracic region and the sacral region of the spinal cords. These autonomic fibers, they enters in, into the ventral motor roots, then they join the trunk of the spinal nerve, but they then leave the spinal nerve, and of the thoracic regions, fibers from the thoracic regions of the autonomic nervous system, they ends into the neurons of the sympathetic chain, while the fibers of the sacral regions, they leave the spinal nerves and they synapse in the peripherally placed parasympathetic ganglion, or the ganglion present near the wall of the viscera or within the wall of the viscera. The trunk of the spinal nerve, after forming, immediately divides into a dorsal ramus and a ventral ramus. The dorsal ramus supplies the muscles of the back, the joints of the vertebra, and also the skin of the back, while the ventral ramus supplies the musculature of the limbs and the ventral body wall by forming the major nerve plexus with the name of the brachial and the lumbosacral plexus. The nerve fibers get whitish due to the deposition of the myelins around them, and that process is called the myelination. Myelination of the nerve fibers outside the CNS and within the CNS takes place by different cells. Schwann cells myelinate the peripheral nerve fibers, and that process starts in the 4th month of the intrauterine life, and one Schwann cell can myelinate only one axon by repeated coiling of the Schwann cell membrane around the axons, like this one. While the nerve fibers present within the central nervous system, that is the brain and the spinal cord, they are myelinated by the oligodendrocytes. Oligodendrocytes, like the Schwann cells, also start to myelinate the nerve fibers in the 4th month of the intrauterine life, but that process is not completed until the 1st year after life. Oligodendrocytes first of all myelinate the sensory nerve fibers when they start the myelination process, and it is the motor fibers which are get myelinated at the last, and it is especially the corticospinal fibers which are myelinated almost at 1 year of the life after birth. And another difference of the myelination by the oligodendrocytes is that one cell can myelinate up to 15 axons, contrary to the Schwann cells which myelinate only one nerve fiber. The meninges, which covers the brain and the spinal cord, they are developed from the condensation of the mesenchyme which surrounds the neural tube, and that condensed mesenchyme form a membrane around the developing spinal cord, which is called the primitive meninx. It has an outer layer and a inner layer. The cells of the inner layer, they are derived from the neural crest cells layers, and they give rise to the pia and the arachnoid matter, which are collectively called the leptomeninges. While the outer layer of the primitive meninx, the cells of this outer layer, they are derived from the mesoderm and they later on thickens to form a layer which is present outside the arachnoid matter, and that is called the dura matter. The inner layer which forms the pia and the arachnoid matter gets separated by the formation of the subarachnoid space within that inner layer. That space formation starts with the formation of many multiple small fluid filled spaces which later on get coalesces with one another to form a large subarachnoid space, and that causes splitting of that inner layer of the primitive meninx. One layer adjacent to the spinal cord and the brain, and the other outwards adjacent to the dura matter. The inner part of that inner layer of the primitive meninx is called the pia matter, while the outer part of that inner layer is called the arachnoid matter, and the space in between is called the subarachnoid space. As that subarachnoid space is formed by the fusion of multiple fluid filled spaces, so even after formation there are multiple strands of the connective tissue are present in that space which connect the pia matter and the arachnoid matter. During the third month of the development, the spinal cord extends through the whole length of the vertebral column. So the spinal nerves get passed through the intervertebral foramina at their level of the origins. But with further development, the vertebral column and the dura matter, they shows more rapid growth as compared to the developing neural tube. So neural tube becomes shortened as compared to the length of the vertebral column. So at the development of the 6-month age, the lower end of the spinal cord is now only up to the level of the S1 vertebral level, and this ventral are the dorsal rootlets arising from the spinal cord of the lower part. They have to travel down in the extradural space down in the form of a horseshoe tail type structure which is called the cauda equina before reaching the level of the intervertebral foramina, where they unite to form a nerve trunk and then they exit. While at birth, the lower end of the spinal cord is at the level of the lumbar vertebral level 3 at birth. So in the newborn, the level is a bit lower as compared to the adult people, where it further ascends. It is rather not ascend, it is the lengthening of the vertebral column which causes its positional change. And so at puberty, the lower end of the spinal cord terminate at L1 or between L1 or L2. The extension of the pia mater goes on and it extends, and then it perforates the lower end of the dura mater, which extends up to this second sacral vertebra, and it then perforate that dural sac and get attached to the coccyx region, and that thread-like structure is called the phylum terminale. That thread-like structure is formed by the pia mater. From the positional change, we must consider these levels by performing the lumbar puncture, which is done to aspirate the cerebrospinal fluid. In case of the newborns, the level should be lower as compared to the adult people. It should be between L5 or the S1 vertebral, or maximally between L4 L5, and in the adult it is better to perform between L4 and L5 or maximum between L3 L4, but it is safe to perform the lumbar puncture process between L4 and L5 vertebral level. Abnormal closure of the neural folds during the formation of the neural tube in the 4th week of the development leads to number of defects with the name of the neural tube defects. The non-closure or the abnormal closure of the neural tube also leads to the non-fusion of the neural arches of the surrounding vertebra. It may involve the one or more than one of the vertebra. Among the causes, many causes are supposed to be there, but the hyperthermia, valproic acid, and hypervitaminosis A is supposed to be more important. According to the site and the involvement of the tissues, it may involve the membranes, meaning meninges, it may involve the muscle tissue, it may involve the vertebra, it may involve the skin. So according to the site and the involvement of the tissue, we can divide it into different types. Anencephaly. Anencephaly typically means absence of the head, but this term should be inappropriate as there is a partial absence of the head, usually involving the cerebral hemisphere. So meroanencephaly is a more appropriate term to be used for that condition. Spina bifida occulta. In this type of the neural tube defect, there is only defect in the closure of the neural arches, means there is a non-fusion of the right and the left neural arch in the midline, leading to a bifid vertebra. But through that gap, there is no herniation of either the meninges or the neural tissue. So there is no swelling over the body. That is why it is called the hidden split syndrome. It usually involves the second sacral vertebral area, and it may be noted during any time of the life by a dimple covered by a stuff of hairs at that position, and it is incidentally noticed during any time of the life when a X-ray of the spine is performed due to some reason. Another type is when there is this visible swelling over the body. It usually involves the lumbosacral areas. Sometimes cervical area may also be involved. And when the swelling is there, So there is a herniation of some of the tissue through that neural arch defect, leading to the swelling over the surface of the bodies. And when there is only herniation of the meninges, and through that gap, and that swelling is filled with the cerebrospinal fluid, that condition is called meningocele, spina bifida cystica with meningocele. And when the herniated tissues also involves the neural tissue of the spinal cord, meaning in the that swelling, the meninges, the cerebrospinal fluid, and the neural tissues have also herniated, then that condition is called spina bifida cystica with meningomyelocele. Sometimes there is no raising of the neural folds, mean they will not come close to each other, there will be no fusion. So the neural tube does not form, rather the neural plate remains as such, and that open spinal cord herniate through that vertebral arch defects and come to lie on the surface. And it also involves the muscles tissue and the skin tissue, so that swelling is not covered with the muscle tissue or skin. It is an open defect which leads to severe abnormalities. Diagnosis of the neural tube defects can be made during the intrauterine life. The high alpha fetoprotein level in the amniotic fluid and later on sometime also in the maternal serum may be noted, especially in case of spina bifida aperta with myeloschisis. Ultrasonography can also detect the neural arch defects, and on the basis of that some people have tried to operate during the intrauterine life by open up the uterus and operating on the fetus and then doing closure of the fetus after placing the new fetus in the uterus. Prevention is very important and very helpful. It is the folic acid which is supposed to prevent this type of the abnormality, and any woman of childbearing age should take this. This is the normal spine. Look at, there is a no defect in the vertebral arches, and this is spina bifida occulta, mean there is a no swelling on the surface of the body. There is no swelling on the surface of body. There is a defect in the neural arches, but there is a no herniation of either the meninges or the neural tissue through that defect. So it is only the non-fusion of the neural arches, and it is incidentally found sometime during the life when X-ray is performed due to some other abnormal problem. This is the case of the herniation of the meninges, and that swelling is filled with the cerebrospinal fluid, and that condition in which there is a herniation of the meninges is called spina bifida cystica with meningocele. And if in addition to the meninges there is also herniation of the neural tissue into this swelling, then that condition is called spina bifida cystica with myelomeningocele. And the most severe form is when there is a no elevation of the neural folds, so no closure of the neural tube. The neural tissue is in the form of a flat neural plate, and that neural tissue get herniated through the vertebral arch defects and comes to lie on the surface. And note it, there is a no covering either by the muscle or by any membrane or by skin. So neural tissue is exposed to the surface, leading to many complications, and these baby usually die within minutes or within few days after birth, leading to the severe abnormalities. Especially this is true for the patients of the microencephaly when there is a partial absence of the head involving the cerebral hemisphere. In this type of the patient can survive for weeks or years, but there are definitely some neural involvement, and this is a patient. Look at the herniation of the neural tissue and but no covering by any type of membrane or skin. We conclude here the development of the spinal cord. In the next lecture, we will discuss the development of the medulla oblongata, inshallah.